Hi everyone, welcome back to Babylon Irons. We haven't done this in a while, so we're doing a live show. I am Slob here. We also have Sloth as well. So you have the usual band all on here just to talk everything West Ham. And it's been a bit of a crazy week, lads. Loads of transfer rumours going around, lots of stuff going on with Declan Rice. And we're about to get ourselves a new technical director, which may not go down so well with our incumbent manager, but I think us three and probably a number of other West Ham fans are probably really infused and happy by it. So, first off, guys, good evening. Nick, what a soldier, being up at 3:30 in the morning and watching this. Well done to you. So, but how are you feeling, guys? And how are your feelings on this week, seeing all the rumours that have been flying around?
Go on, Slob, you take it first.
Quite annoyed at a particular club. I'll just leave it there. I'm sure we'll dive into it at some point.
Yeah.
Another aspect of things, you guys have seen the sort of tweet around something that's coming in October that I think is what's driving partially the push for a move this summer. So just a lot of speculation, a lot of stuff. But, the window just opened, but typical West Ham fashion, we're not going to do anything for a while. So buckle up for a lot of nothing.
Yeah, indeed. What about you, Sloth?
I think it's been really interesting so far. I've tracked the sort of targets we've been linked with, and obviously as we look to welcome Timmy to the setup, it's very much changed from we're really interested in Ward Prowse and we're really interested in, Paulina, to suddenly moving in what is my opinion the right direction, players like Alex Scott. And it's kind of got me a bit hopeful. I'm not going to lie. I think obviously the frustrations of the week aside, I think there's a lot to be positive about, and hopefully we can kind of capitalize on this, the feel good vibe around the club at the moment.
Yeah, so also Steinberg has Jacob Steinberg. If you don't know who Steinberg is, just by that name, he's a well-known reporter for The Guardian, has also just in the last 20 minutes or so basically written an article to say that we are on the verge of getting Tin Steinman. So I think we can probably now say, guys, quite comfortably, this is West Ham, so it's never done until it's done.
Oh.
But I
You've
guess
got to wait till he holds up the shirt.
Yeah, he hasn't done his medical yet.
Don't go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go to sleep, MH. I think we could probably start to assume that he's coming in, and I think as you said, Sloth, and as you allude to, this already seems to be some positive reinforcement there, and we've been linked to a good young Japanese player out of Bundesliga 2 as well. So again, it's a nice, smart movement, something that we don't normally attribute to us. So you can already see this. Maybe his influence is already starting to come in, introducing maybe lesser known players to West Ham that could do a job. And I know you talked about him earlier, Sloth, so I'm going to let you kind of fill people in as to who he is and why he potentially actually is quite a smart acquisition if we were to move ahead with it.
Well, Tanaka is a tenacious central defensive mid. He's probably about 6 foot, maybe just under, but he's got quite a lean frame. But more importantly, he is just really, really solid all round. He's very strong. He's got a great engine on him, very technically capable. And most of us will know a bit about him from the World Cup, obviously, where he came on against Germany and he was fantastic. But he really does deliver a bit of dynamism into that central defensive area. And not only that, but he's comfortable on the ball. I kind of got asked a little bit about him in that little comments section, and he turns 25 in September, but in terms of what he can do for us, reportedly they kind of want about 8 million euros. The question is there as whether they will take maybe 5 or 6, and I think they probably will. But this is a guy he's very popular in Japan, and it's one that we can really look to kind of push our marketing a little bit further forward. And I hate saying that sort of cynical side of things, especially when it comes around a certain demographic of players. I think people use it as a bit of a cliche, but he is very popular. He will help us kind of build our club internationally, and he will, more importantly, get stuff done on the pitch. He will be a great asset to have in terms of our rotation. If we're, running a little bit thin on the ground, players maybe a bit leggy at times, bringing him on is a really good impact to have. You're on mute, Malik.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that's a good summation of that. But I think, again, when you look at Steinman as well, he doesn't necessarily spend a great deal, but when he spends very well, very astute in the market, and you tend to see the ones he gets right tend to end up turning out to be 50 million plus type players. When you look at, Moussa Diaby, who's been talked about at Newcastle recently. So it's definitely an exciting one, and one that actually does represent a long-term strategy, we hope. We probably need certain people to remove the reins and be less involved. I wonder who that could be.
Well, I think one of the things that's quite interesting is if we were to do that, it does potentially free up. If we were to sign him, I don't want to be too harsh on an academy lad, but potentially moving someone like Coventry along, maybe even greasing up Bristol City just a little bit, so we can say, look, we'll give you Conor Coventry as a make weight. He's been in and around the squad. He's got that Premier League experience, but also he's been playing in the Conference League a little bit. Could that help soften them up for someone like Alex Scott, who we know is going to come in and be another impact player almost? I think that could be a really smart move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once he does sign, which I think is going to be next week, it's probably going to be a good one. And so I know you're a big Bundesliga fan, so I'm going to hand over to you as well to kind of give your thoughts on him, because obviously you watch Bundesliga very intently. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective as well on him as an appointment to West Ham.
I mean, you just look at sort of what he's done, at Leverkusen. It's, the players that he's brought in, and even Werder Bremen before that, the players they brought in there, you're looking at that, ultimate 11 of players that he scouted and signed that was out on Twitter earlier. I know that we saw.
Yeah, it's an insane combined 11. It really is.
Goalkeepers,
but
we're fine there. So, but for me, it's, one of the things that, straight off the bat, he's the one that beat us to Adam Hložek last year, the Czech young player. So, I mean, if we can sort of pry him away from Leverkusen as well, let's try to use those strings to pull that, but we'll see on that one. But yeah, no, it's the talent that he brings in. Again, as you're sort of saying, he's not going and overspending for players, but he's going in and picking up players that, are on the cusp of a national team or already on a national team and on the up, or he's even coming in and sort of picked up players that are on the backside of, a career, similar to what David Moyes might want, but he's not overpaying for them either. Similar to what you said, Sloth, he's done some moves where, we have some really good academy products. We'll loan you out to those players for 2 years to lessen the blow of, you giving us one of your, starting 11. So I think that a lot of shrewd business, but in the end, I think the sort of, he's coming in as technical director. So there is a bit more than just sort of the transfer side of things. I think the culture of football that he's brought with him from Werder Bremen to Leverkusen, wherever he's been, really fits the West Ham sort of way that, the fan base wants to play. So it's a lot of these are one of our own players. We're not finding, we're not being the Arsenal and signing Declan Rice, who's already made a name for himself at West Ham. We're signing players that may have made a name for themselves, like Alex Scott at Bristol City, but they haven't we're giving them the platform on the biggest stage to, really shine, and then potentially make a profit off them. And I think that's something what we've lacked in the last decade or so, within sort of our transfer strategy, which, other clubs around us, I mean, look at Brighton. That's a perfect example of they continue to fund themselves and continue to find great players. And they're in, arguably, barely missed out, I'd say, on Champions League this year. It was very tough, uphill battle for them to get there. But I mean, they were very close at the end to sort of getting that fourth spot. So, I mean, I hope that we can take what he's done, in the transfer window, as well as what he's able to do sort of with the culture of football within West Ham.
Yeah. And if we're going to talk about what he's done, that's a terrible image. So it's all good, well intentioned, but it's a terrible image. But effectively, if we list, so there's if you go on Twitter, there is his all-time 11. But if I give you kind of some from top players within there, he's bought Nkepe, he's bought Tapiosa. He was also involved for Kevin De Bruyne, for Florian Wirtz, Diaby, Schick, and Gnabry. It's an incredible set of players who were brought in over his time at Werder Bremen and also at Leverkusen. And a number of those Leverkusen ones we've called out are actually still there as part of the current team. So arguably, if they were looking to sell the four that we called out, you'll be looking around 30 million, 50 to 60 million plus for those players, which is just an incredible feat to have that many players. It's something that us as West Ham fans would kill for. Talking of about a £60 million player, I'm not going to talk about Declan Rice just yet, but it's been rumoured that Newcastle are willing to offer around £60 million for Lucas Paqueta. Obviously looking to have that Samba beat in the middle of their park with Joe Littleton, with Bruno Guimaraes, but I would say, lads, he's got to be a non-starter, right? Surely.
Nah, definitely not. That doesn't even touch the sides of what he's worth, in my opinion. I mean, you look at what we paid for him. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he struggled a little bit at the start, but he's not been. He's never had a terrible game, so I don't think it's fair to say that he hasn't added to his profit. If we've just paid 50 million, I'd be looking to recoup at least 80 million in terms of the fee. So I wouldn't sell him. It's not me saying we should sell him, by the way, but don't sell him for essentially with his wages what you've paid. What's the point of that?
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly there.
Yeah.
It's pretty much spot on. And, unfortunately, Happy Hammerette, no. If this is West Ham, of course there's no signings yet. But Timmy, as we are going to constantly call him, is probably going to be our first signing. And what a signing that would be. There obviously have been rumours as well that this week we've got closer in terms of getting a deal together for Harvey Barnes. So, again, that could be a really good deal for us. Obviously, it'd be in that left-hand side. So it'd be interesting to see what we do with Ben Rama and Cornet, potentially even Fornals with him coming in. What would you guys do? Would you like to keep all three of those players as well as Barnes, or would you be looking to maybe shift one on to try and maybe generate some funds to bring in someone else as a deputy, maybe for Bowen on his side?
Yeah, so just from my perspective, I think Fornals, and this is, to go just back on Paqueta for a second, he did what he did this year out of position, out of his natural position. He's not a 10, he's an 8, and plays on the left side, very creative, etc. Similar to Fornals, he's not a left wing. He shouldn't be up on that left side. Now, if we want to deploy him as a sort of left wing back in a pinch, I'm happy with that. He's got the defensive ability and work rate to do that, but he really needs to be in the center of the park, as essentially Paqueta's understudy as a left-sided 8. And that's my opinion. I think that if needed, he could fill in that Lanzini role with, Lanzini leaving the club now. So I don't sell Fornals. I also don't think that he's going to generate enough sort of interest or capital to really make an offer there. But, with the other two, I'll start with Cornet. I think that he's actually going to blossom for us. The injury that he had last year was very rare. I blame our conditioning department, but that's just another whole story there. But he's recovered from that. And I mean, if you looked at some of the matches, you know, he was constantly offsides, which is frustrating, but he hasn't practiced or played with these guys, and it's really hard to get the timing down. So I think that, you know, a full off season and then, you know, start of the next season, I think in Europe, he could be our starting striker, at least starting sort of up on a left wing, and really just sort of take advantage of that. With the Benrahma situation, I love Benny. I would hope that he stays at the club, but I think he's one of those players where if an offer comes in from a club and we can sort of double what we paid for him, because we didn't pay for that much on him, to be honest. And now he's proven in the Premier League, because when we got him from Brentford, he hasn't. He's proven over Europe as well. He's calm from penalty spot. So really for, you know, a club like a Fulham or, you know, Notts Forest or something like that, I'm not talking sort of the quote unquote big six, but someone could come in and make him a marquee player for them. And I would love for him to stay at the club, but I just think that there are areas where we can improve. And I unfortunately think that, you know, some pace up front, specifically on the left side, could really help that. And I think Barnes sort of gives us all the above across the board there.
Yeah, I can't disagree. And, you know, Thunder and Joy's right. We really need some pace. We're crying out for it. And yeah, Bowen does obviously definitely needs some kind of competition, really. Maybe Cornet could be that answer. And again, this is something, again, me and Sloth, how many times have we made this statement? We need 2 players for Rice, and you're going to need a third because you're going to need to replace Lanzini. But again, Sloth, you made a great point. Potentially, you move across Fornals into that position to kind of ease that burden. We've also talked before about young George Urphy as well. Fantastic young talent, could also be another one that we maybe look to bring forward as an answer to that. Again, we need, I guess, the manager to be a lot more flexible in his usage of youth and maybe be a bit more supportive in giving those a chance. But it's an interesting conundrum. Again, strikers, as we know, all 3 of our strikers probably have an insecure future at West Ham, I would probably suggest, this season. Antonio, more fault of his own, I would probably suggest. Scamacca obviously hasn't particularly settled, but it's one of those horrible kind of situations. We've got so much that needs to come in, so much we need to do. By all accounts, very little cash in which to do that due to the FFP kind of conversation, which is genuinely true. We do have much tighter regulations if we're going to play in Europe, and that is something we do have to kind of
I can't wait until Krasinski suddenly announced that we've been partnered with Royal Mail and we're going to get the Royal Mail Stadium or some nonsense like that. One thing I am very interested in, and obviously I think it's a disgrace, political leanings aside, the Saudi market at the moment I think is absolutely embarrassing in football terms, particularly with a certain London club. But the obvious link is Felipe Anderson at the moment. So I'm keeping an eye on that because
exactly. And then that's a great point you just mentioned, because we obviously, for those who don't remember, Felipe Anderson has a 50% sell-on clause. So let's hope he goes for massive money out of Lazio, because that's going to be a lovely little boost to our transfer kitty. So it'll be nice.
It's also potentially we have 2 strikers who could maybe appeal to that market.
Well, one said that they only wanted to stay in the Premier League for their money. So you never know. They might be tempted by a money move.
I mean, if look, the money they're offering people is mad. And it's getting to the point where someone like Antonio or Ings, they're never going to earn that money again. I don't mean that with any disrespect at all. But if a Saudi Arabian club came to them and said, we're going to pay you £300,000 a week and, you know, you'll be on a 4-year contract, what do you say? Remember, they don't have to pay income tax as well. So you're going to make £300,000 a week without anything going to the tax man. They're probably going to bite your hand off. Most people would, but hopefully there is a Saudi team out there who are looking at Danny Ings clips and looking at Antonio goals thinking, ooh, we could do with that. Maybe that'll appeal to a certain demographic.
Yeah, and there's every chance again. As we say, there's a lot of Muslim players have been brought up by obviously PIF putting in significant money in which to increase their league. There's every chance, someone like Ben Rama may be someone that they look to in which to generate that kind of stardom, shall we say. I think it's a leap, Alex. I don't think he's going to go for 75 million. They may well offer it, but I don't see us willingly and knowingly doing a Rice and Paqueta signing off on those going beforehand. And absolutely 100% agree with this, Paresh. He could be the best signing that we have in many years. And Happy Hammer, absolutely. You build a team around Paqueta. We've said it before when obviously all the Rice things were coming up. We absolutely made that point. Again, you have to build around him. Azzy, we're going to get into it now. The Rice saga, the saga that will never seem to end. It seems to be getting interesting, lads. We've got obviously all the stuff going on with Arsenal with it. There's now rumours Man United are interested, looking to offer us players that we are rumoured to be interested in, but I would suggest they are interests of the manager, maybe not of the new current setup, I would say. In all honesty, Alex, I think he will turn it down. I think if you were saying Scamacca for 30 million or 25 million, I would probably agree with you, but I don't think Scamacca is the one that he's gonna bend and break on and let go for any kind of money this year. I could be wrong. This is David Sullivan. We know he loves a bit of money, so he might just do it, but I don't think he will. And then to go back to the United one, obviously they're offering players that potentially we want. Obviously McTominay's liked and admired by David Moyes, sees him as a Rice replacement. However, he's more a Souček type player, I would suggest. And then obviously we've got Man City waiting in the wings as well, yet to have identified what they're going to, or show their hand as yet, which I suspect would be sizable if they choose to come in for him. So first off, guys, of your preference, it's also Chelsea as well, another one lingering in the background. Of your preference of those four, if you had to sell him, I think I know which ones you're all going to say. Which club would you not necessarily be happy with, but would be more accepting of see Declan Rice turn out for?
Go ahead, Slav.
Personally, City 10 out of 10. I've already covered on this channel how much I dislike Mikel Arteta, and I'm not going to go over that again. But I do think it's baffling to me at the moment that people are saying that Rice would want to go to Arsenal over Manchester City. And we do know that Manchester City haven't quite made the same contact with Rice that Arsenal have been very upfront about. Part of that is rumoured to be because they were waiting to see if Gundogan signed a new contract, but also, potentially Silva, what's he going to do, and the future there. But I do think there's something about Pep Guardiola, and even if he's only there for 2 more years, would you ever turn down the chance to play under that man?
I know I wouldn't. I think if you're a player, you want to play for the best manager in the world rather than the B-Tech version of that manager.
Well, it's also if Real Madrid were coming knocking, then no Thunder. I can't stand him. I think he's a really arrogant, but also. Well, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going. No, I just think he's really disrespectful, arrogant, and he's one of those people who I think appears to think he's God's gift. And for the Arsenal, here's a little scoop for you. For the Arsenal game, obviously I went pitch side. There's a bit on my Twitter about it. I did actually see him, and quite a few people were like basically waving and trying to get his attention, and he just looked at them like they were a certain dog substance on his shoe. And I think when you're in that position, there's a way to do things, one of which is not to go to the fourth officials and make that sort of gesture towards them. I think that's incredibly distasteful and disrespectful. But I think he's a petulant child as well. And when he doesn't get things go his way, it shows. And I'm glad he's cracked under the pressure. He's perfectly suited to Arsenal and their fans, if I'm being honest. From what we've seen on social media, I know lots of Arsenal fans who are lovely, and I know I'm beginning to sound like a bit of a paste here of, I'm defending myself and certain topics of controversy come up. But I just think he is the least likable manager. I'd rather play for Ten Hag, and that's saying something when they have Bruno Fernandes. It's a case of, would you want to go to a team that may compete? We don't know for sure, particularly when we look at the recruitment of the likes of Liverpool. Or do you want to go to a side are not only going to be favourites for the title, but they're also probably going to be favourites to try and take Europe again, and they're probably going to be favourites for a domestic cup. So if ever there was a side who could potentially repeat a treble season in England, it's them. Why would you want to go anywhere else?
Yeah, I think the counter argument some would say is it's a trophy earned with Arsenal or another club is actually earned. You've fought for it, you've had to battle for it. Whereas with Man City, it's more of an expectation, and you're a trophy collecting. But however, I think 2 years under Pep Guardiola takes your ability to a whole new level. We've seen that in the likes of Grealish, that he's changed his game massively, but he's made him a far more intelligent football player. And bearing in mind, the guy doesn't even know what England is when he looks at it on a map. I think that's an incredible achievement from Guardiola to make him a more intelligent player. And I to be honest, I love Grealish. I think he's awesome, but he is a bit, he's a bit dim. Let's be honest. But I don't bless him. But when you look at obviously the bids that are coming from Arsenal, they do come across as disrespectful. I know there's been conversations being had that they were told a fee prior to West Ham winning the Euro competition, that it was like £80 million would accept that. And now they're surprised that now we've won it. We're going from being a team that's just beat relegation to now being a team that's, regardless of that finish, is now in Europa League. Their assumption is that there would not be a premium on a player who's now playing European football. Is not only naive, it's also completely disrespectful to West Ham, and just shows their lack of interest in what West Ham have told them when they've actually been very clear it's going to be around £100 million in which to get him. And from what Ix said, I think first bid was £65 million plus £10 million. And then the next bid has then been 75 plus 10 with incentives around them winning. I think if you're West Ham, and I think if it was Arsenal of old, you probably would have taken those incentives and said they were realistic. But in today's day and age of football, they've had one successful season in the past 6 where they've been looking like they're going to challenge for a title. They've never won a European trophy and not looked close to winning one since the Invincibles. So how they think that is a realistic objective as well is just almost laughable. They're telling us that we're acting like big boys, but Jesus Christ, rein your neck in, lads, because you're taking it to a new level. And I thought Spurs fans were always overreacting when they talked about Arsenal, but you know what? I have the tiniest bit of sympathy from only a little bit. To the point of I would piss next to them if they're on fire now, rather than just completely walk away and do it around the corner. I'd now do it next to them. But seriously, the Arsenal lot it's just mind-boggling as well. Some of the reactions and the entitlement behind the whole thing of, well, West Ham should be flattered that we want their player. They should
I think that's top football club fans in general, though, and I think that's why I quite want City to get him, because I don't see that from as many City fans. But I do think that there's this idea that the footballing world should lick the boots of these big top teams because we should be lucky to have them, and it's very much pushed forward in Spain as well. Barcelona are coming in for a player and Real Madrid are coming in for a player. No one can compete with them. And it's like, well, maybe if you follow football and if you want to do certain things, that's true. if you are based in London and you are an Arsenal fan, you're going to want to go to Arsenal. But I'm sorry, when you have Pep Guardiola, possibly the greatest manager ever, definitely in modern history, apart from Alex Ferguson, like those are the two titans of it. You're going to go to Man City. You're going to go to Man City 10 times out of 10 if you actually, think about winning things and you think about that adding to your career. He may not start every single game for them, but 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen at any club you go to. It's just the reality of modern football that there's going to be some element of rotation and competition. So I think the entitlement that we're seeing, it's very hard not to react to, particularly when, like myself and Mike, we are getting such disrespect. And I think, again, these top 4 clubs, the big 6, their fan base are terrible at it in terms of they don't actually care about football as a whole. They care about themselves because they see it as a validation of them individually. It's that clip going round where on social media, and he goes, "Look, you're a shit club." And you go, I would never go up to a Coventry fan for Gyökeres and go, "You're a shit club. Nobody likes you, and you're in a crap division." 10 years down the line, you don't know if Arsenal are going to be in the Championship. Are those fans still going to be following them and going, "We're going to Millwall away today," because they'll probably still be in the Championship. But are they going to go up to a Millwall fan and go, "You're a shit club. Nobody likes you"? No, like they wouldn't dream of doing it. But they get on this platform.
I think he only said it like that because Nicky was so far on the other side of the table. I reckon if Nicky was sitting right next to him, he would have curbed his words a little bit more, to be honest. And Nicky was right. You are a big club on the first run. That's it. You're on the first run back up. You're not where you say you are. You've had one quality season and you've just lost all perspective. They were a brilliant, brilliant team. Now they're more of a fashion brand than they are a brilliant top team, right? Well, let's be honest, they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're more about fashion than they are actually being, the side that they profess to be for years. But anyway, besides all of that Arsenal bashing, which is a good lot of fun, to be honest, what would it take for you guys, or what would you like to see come in from a bid? Because obviously at the moment it's been a bit, I think we can all, and fair to say, it's been an absolute joke the way they've been, and they're trying to make out that we're the bad guys when really they've been pathetic. Also, I will have to say, I'm going to say it. If the rumours are true that representatives representing our player is one of the reasons why Arsenal are acting in the way that they are and are trying to strong arm West Ham in, fucking shame on you. The sheer pathetic, duplicitous, two-faced attitude to be in the crowd at West Ham, basking in our glory, our moment, singing our songs to your son and your brother and your cousin, and then at the same time whispering in his ear saying, "Nah, just reject everyone else. Fuck them. Screw them over. Restrict any chance they have to get any money out of you." Bear in mind, this is a player said that he loves the club, would do anything for the club. If you love the club, you would listen to other offers. You don't need to accept them, but you at least listen to them. You at least allow West Ham to see what they can potentially get from other clubs. Arsenal then have the choice of actually putting up and shutting up and doing what they said or not. But effectively, you're trying to restrict and stop West Ham from getting the best for the club, potentially the best for Deckers. But ultimately, let's be honest, rules are changing next year. Family members can't earn money off of transfers. Funny how this transfer is really being pushed this year. Call me cynical, call me whatever you want, but it's funny that this year is the year where things have really been trying to push forward. When, bearing in mind, about September time, the cutoff comes, rules and regulations change on agents, representatives, and who can make money out of transfers, and family members cannot. And who represents Declan Rice? His family. Now, hopefully, this is all rumours, and that's all wrong. And if it is, wholeheartedly, they don't deserve any criticism. However, if this is true, and they have, it's disgusting, quite frankly, that this team has given everything to their son to put him where he is, and this is how they've repaid him, because it means they're going to get a few quid in their pocket. I know it's going to be more than a few quid, but you've got to question why such a heavy preference for Arsenal, other than the fact they're a London club and he doesn't need to move. The cynical part of football, or the cynicalness that football has brought about, you just sit there and you just go, there are clearly some incentives being given in which to reject all other offers without even seeing them come to you. So that's my rant. My head's gone on that bit. Like Sloth's head went on.
Let's get Slob's opinion. Come on, Slob.
So I think I mean, I don't know if I was sort of one of the first to sort of point this out, that the rules are changing October 1st. FIFA is trying to get rid of the Alf Holland Mina Raiola side payments, where they each got roughly like £40 million for moving Holland to Man City. I mean, they got the same sort of in the move for Holland to Dortmund. So it's these payments where a parent or a family member, as a representative of the player, brokers the deal for a fee for themselves. So if you guys are unaware of it, I mean, look up the Holland stuff. There's rumors and speculations around Bellingham as well this summer. He wanted to stay at Dortmund, was the whole sort of talk within the club. Obviously, he's very well spoken, and when he's gone to Real Madrid now, he's saying the right things. I think he's a great player, but his father represents him, and this was the time for him to make that move to Real Madrid. There's no sort of indication of what a fee would be for his father. I don't know if that'll ever come to the light of day, but you got to think Florentino Perez has greased the pockets there for the Bellingham family quite well.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah, I digress.
I don't want to criticize. I don't want to say that his family are doing that, but at the same time, there's quite a bit of smoke coming from it. So there's maybe a little bit of a fire. And, the rumors that there has been a complete declaration, we won't talk to anyone else, kind of makes you think, it's going to happen, right? But anyway, they're potentially going to bid for us. Would you guys accept?
Come on, Slob. What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
So, Mike and Sloth, I agree with you. I think we're all in sort of cahoots on that. Man City would be our preferred destination for other things that we'll get into probably in a second of what an offer would look like. I'm sitting here saying 9 times out of 10, I want Man City to be the club that he ends up with. That 1 time out of 10, I want Todd Bowley just to open up his checkbook to Sean Rice, to West Ham, and say, you're not going to play in Europe next year, but we're going to give you 300K a week, and we're going to give West Ham 150 plus add-ons. And Sean Rice, your season ticket for life, and you've been upgraded to corporate hospitality. So that's me just sitting here in a dream world, being like, Chelsea, come on, just show us what you got. And there's some players that wouldn't mind either.
I have had it under somewhat like reliable source that the last place he would go is back to Chelsea, and especially with Mount potentially leaving, I don't think he'd go back there. But I do agree. I would love to see suddenly they get a huge fee come through for Callum Hudson-Odoi, and they go, yes, now this has now suddenly allowed us to spend 150 million straight into the hands of Sullivan, who, let's face it, would probably pass away if he got that phone call. But it is that sort of dream world. But I mean, you look at it and you think anything can happen in the transfer window at the moment. It's weird because, as you say, there is this clampdown from FIFA and UEFA on who can do what, and it's almost like the last days of the Wild West out in the transfer window at the moment, I think.
Yeah, so here's a question, guys. Before we move on to what we think was acceptable, would we take any of the players being offered in rumoured other clubs? If Declan was to do as Danny Murphy has suggested as well tonight and say he needs to potentially go on strike to force a move, would it leave a sour taste in your mouth?
I mean, 100%. I think I'm too old school. Maybe I'm not. I mean, people might like to criticize me and say, I play FIFA too much. I haven't touched a FIFA game in years. But actually, no, I did at work. But, that was part of my job. But the thing is that I find it really hard to give any player who goes on strike any bit of leeway. I think if I did that at my job, and I'm not going to talk about what I do, if I did that at my job, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't be getting paid. It's ridiculous. And we did actually almost have a strike situation at my work. So it is something that I've had to think about. But I don't think that if you're a professional footballer, we all know Rice is getting paid well. And I'm not saying that should kind of undercut any right he has to voice his opinion. But if you put in a transfer request, that's one thing. That's the first step. And I said to Mike the other day, I don't have any problem with players who support a club voicing that. And someone like Scamacca, if Scamacca came out and said, I love Roma, I want to go, and I'm going to put in a transfer request, I'm really sorry, I would have no problem with that. Yes, I would want us to get the money we paid for him. I think that's important. Just like that's the most important thing. But I don't have a problem with a player saying, I love this club and I want to go. However, just to go on strike, I think is outrageous. I hate that sort of justification, especially from Gollum. Like, I'm not going to listen to what bloody Lord of the Rings little football pundit has to say on anything. He wasted his career doing absolutely nothing other than scoring a few free kicks now and again. He never pushed forward as a player. All he did was obviously stay late on the training ground because no one wanted to hang around with him and practice free kicks. It's pathetic. In terms of players I'd want, I've been quite vocal about who I'd like to see come in. If Arsenal were to offer us Balogun, I think he really suits us. My problem is that I think David Sullivan is a very weak negotiator. And I'm not sure how that balances out in terms of valuations. I would like around 95 million and Balogun. That's probably what I'd take if it was me. But in terms of Manchester City, I think they're the team that have the most to offer us in terms of players. You look at someone like Harwood Bellis, a centre-back. We need a homegrown centre-back to replace
Doyle as well, another centre-back.
August. I know he's not homegrown, but you've got that pace that we need as well. And even Palmer.
Well.
And even Palmer. So I think there is, if they were to chuck two players at us, Harwood Bellis and say Palmer, then I would probably take 80 million, just because I think we all know what sort of level players we're getting there. It's the players who can potentially be the next Rice of their position, or even just outside that area, a 50 or 60 million pound player. So those are the main ways that
Bellis had a season of learning from the master in company. So, he's going to have had a very good education. That's a lot. How about you? Because obviously looking at the Arsenal one, Man United are also looking to offer potentially McTominay, or in my case, I'd say McTominay, and also looking at, I couldn't resist, as well as potentially looking at Maguire. What would your thoughts be? Anthony here saying about maybe 70 million plus Tierney. I think unfortunately Tierney's knees can't manage it. I know David is also no for McTominay, no for Maguire. I think obviously they're more moist picks. So what about you, Slob? What would you be? Would you be looking at just straight cash, outright straight cash in any deal, or would you be open to entertain any part exchanges with those teams? And if so, who would you be kind of propositioning as a part exchange offer?
Yes, I mean, for me, if I'm looking at straight cash, I mean, I'd look at 100 as sort of the minimum. But if they're looking at 100, you're looking at a large chunk up front. I mean, we're talking 80, 85 million up front, and then the other 20, 15 million over 5 years. Great. That can pay off, some of the transfers that we've done where we're still paying people that they've already left the club. So I digress there. But the players aspect, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of players. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Harvey Bellis. If you watch him for the England, coming up through England youth teams, he's captain. I think was it the under 21s or under 23s. So I mean, he's got leadership. He replaces sort of that Declan Rice leadership. He's just played at Burnley and helped them come up in convincing fashion. He's an immense talent. I look at him as someone on the back line that can really, really help us from day one. Can sort of make Zuma almost expendable from that sort of right hand side. I think he would pair very well with Agard. Borges, I love. I'm not as sold on the other players within Man City. I think that there's a ceiling to them. For me, I'm not the biggest fan of Palmer. I think that he would go to, and this is where I sort of put ourselves above some of these clubs. I think he'd go to sort of a mid-table club, which is us, on our best days. But I think he goes to a mid-table club and sort of elevates them. I think that, say, Southampton come back up next year and they don't have Ward-Prowse. I think that he's someone that could sort of fill that role for them. So I think Man City is better off sort of keeping him that way. But yeah, Borges and Harvey Bellis, if we get them in, I mean, even at for me, 80 million, for the two of them, 75 on sort of a well-structured financial package. I'm not looking at players that are older. And this is where I think Moyes comes in and has 1 year left on his contract. And he's looking at building a solid team that he knows and can trust for one more season, a challenge at, we got to the semifinals of the Europa League. So maybe we can try to get the finals where a McTominay and a Maguire for him is a win now move versus the uncertainty of a Harvey Bellis or a Borges or, another young player that's 23 years or younger, because that's just not how Moyes is. So that's a very Moyesy deal to take a Maguire McTominay. Now, for me, I mean, the news that United's going to pay Maguire 10 million to leave, I mean, that just is, they're going to have to pay us more for us to take him. I'm not as mad if we get McTominay as long as we get 110. So, I mean, you're going to have to overpay financially because, I think United, out of the sort of, the clubs that are going to be bidding, other than Chelsea, because they don't have, Champions League to offer or even European football to offer. I think United is not the most logical place or best fit for Deck because Casemiro's there in midfield. There's already competition there right away. I mean, we know the United supporters. If he has one bad step in one game like Maguire does, then he's going to be ridiculed forever. So.
We'll see it at Arsenal as well. They're giving it the big and it works for him like nobody's business. But the moment he puts a foot wrong, they're going to be doing what they've been doing with the likes of Xhaka and everything. They're just going to go straight for the throat.
One thing I would say as well is, though, that if they do sign Mount, and it does look like they're really pushing for him, then suddenly Manchester United is a much more attractive proposition for Rice. And I think if you're giving him the chance to play in front of Casemiro, because let's face it, Deck is a fantastic. He's what, in my opinion, a top 5 centre mid in the world, but he's not an out and out defensive mid, and he's not, he's a blend of box to box and defensive mid. It's that sort of role that, this is why I thought Kefren Thuram was the perfect person to come in, because he's that sort of blend of two positions, but he covers one. And it's a similar thing. I think if he went to United with Mount alongside him or just in front of him, Casemiro behind him, I think you'd see the best out of him. But it's just kind of, how does that happen? Is it going to happen? And I think McTominay is probably also the only player who could make Moyes drop Souček.
Yeah,
I think
it looks like we've got here a long-time listener, first-time caller, Frankie Levin, on here.
Stranger.
Yeah. Do you guys think that with Timmy coming in, or Timmy, as he's most likely going to be called from here on out, do you think he is going to be the kind of the catalyst to push Alex Scott? Not the female presenter. We're on about Alex Scott as in the player for.
That's all we need, isn't it? We need our manager telling he's going to slap someone, and then someone pushing a beloved English football figure.
So
what do you guys think? Do you think Timmy's going to be the catalyst for moving for the likes of Alex Scott?
Yeah, I think that he obviously understands that we have homegrown issues with our roster coming up for this year. So I think Alex Scott sort of fits exactly the role that we look for. I mean, look at Bowen. It's a very similar situation with Scott and Bowen, and we took a chance on Bowen, and look what he's done for the club. So I think that the writing on the wall is there for someone like Sullivan or Moyes to actually make the move for Scott themselves, but I think Timmy pushes it over. And Sloth, I think that you hit the nail on the head with the Coventry sort of bait there, or even if we loan them out, Mubama or someone like that up front, for a year to sort of take another 5 off it or something. I don't know, but I think that he would be someone that pushes for the likes of Alex Scott, as well as the likes of Harwood Bellis, as well as the likes of Borges. So I think that's a move that pushes us in the right direction, at least for the three of us and some of our listeners here. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I think we'll probably maybe make this one our last one. We are nearly approaching the hour mark, and we appreciate everyone being on, but we don't want to keep going all night. We always appreciate you have nights to get on with. But with Russell Martin potentially going to Saints, rumours of Downs might go there on loan next season. What do you guys do with Downs next season with Moyes staying? Do you make him as part of the team still? Is he still a rotation player? Do you keep him just for homegrown, or do you maybe ship him out on loan to get first team football to see maybe if you can command a fee for him maybe in the following season? How do you guys view it?
I mean, personally, I think he's never going to be a Rice level player, and I think that's what's kind of frustrating.
To be honest.
Yeah, it's what's frustrating because I was kind of hopeful that he would come in and really do well, and through no fault of his own, when he has played, he's been played in a more advanced position than his actual position, and he looked good in the Europa Conference League. Whether he would be able to make that step up into the Europa League is another matter altogether. But I do think there is something very valuable in having a West Ham fan in the setup next year. And particularly in this kind of time where there is going to be a massive change at the club in the summer, losing Declan Rice, I think it's valuable to have him about. We only paid £10 million. Was it 10 million or 14 million for it?
About 12, 14 million pounds were paid for it.
It's not a huge sum of money in today's game. And I would keep him around for the homegrown quota, but I'd also keep him around for cups. If you're going to go and play championship team next season or a lower league team, he's exactly the kind of player that you'd want to start in that game. And he's going to be, chomping at the bit to get ready, get stuck in. And also he's not going to be bothered about going to a League Two side. He's not going to be bothered about going to whoever it may be and playing in what is essentially a quagmire. It's not going to bother him. And I think I am disappointed because I wanted him to do well, but I also kind of expected it, and we covered that very much on the channel, and I made my opinions known, which weren't very popular. But I think if we can move along the likes of Vlasic, and then also, as we kind of said and Slob mentioned, use our younger players in a far smarter way, we can get a lot of business done in this window that potentially wouldn't happen if we were just relying on cash funds. And I think I would keep him around. I think he could do very well next season in terms of being that rotational player, but you cannot look at him as a starter in any sort of big competition in the league or in Europa, in my opinion, outside of the group stages.
And from my perspective, I think that you got to keep him for 6 months. I think that he's someone where we reevaluate in January, and if someone comes in for a loan for the rest of the season, that one, a great development for the player, two, gives him first team football, consistently, and three, we'll know where we are with Europe, where we are with some of the domestic competitions by then. So that would open a roster spot for us to go improve somewhere else in January. So I'm just sort of looking at that as I think that he's earned his place on this team. I don't think he's earned his place in the starting lineup or even sometimes on the matchday squad. But I think that he's a perfect player for the club, being a fan and growing up within sort of the culture of the club. I think that he was able to position that to his fellow players of how much this meant to him with our run this year, how much it means to keep the club up. I think having that in the dressing room is crucial. But again, I would look at a January loan for 6 months is something that's beneficial for everyone.
Yeah. Like the way I look at it is, if a decent money bid came in, would I accept? If it was the same money that it took us to buy him, I would take it. It's nothing against Downs. I think he's a tidy enough player, but he's not done enough to, excite me to say that, oh, well, if someone bids what we paid for him, then no, definitely should keep him. I can't say that my feelings are that strong towards him, especially if it means I can go and get another homegrown player. I'll put it towards a homegrown player like Alex Scott. For me, that is an absolute fundamental no-brainer. Or you use that money to go and buy someone like Wharton out of Blackburn or Hackney, who's playing at Middlesbrough. I would have a very less emotional view about it if we were going and buying those types of young players from the Championship, who I think probably have more room for growth, because let's not forget, he's not necessarily a young lad in football terms. He's 25. He's coming into his peak years. So I think if there was an offer that came in that meant we want money back, I would probably take it. If it was Southampton, the link that we're looking at, then if they came in with £10 million and we said, yeah, knock £10 million off Lavia, and that's a like for like homegrown sort of change, then I think that's a big upgrade. And again, as I mentioned, it would be detrimental to lose that sort of love of the club. But I do think that if you were able to broker that deal, I think that's a good one. Yeah, and to be fair, Paresh, no, he probably hasn't been given the chance really to show how good he is. But then a counter argument is, has he done enough when he's been on the pitch, or has he done enough in training to dislodge a vastly underperforming Souček? So again, there's multiple things. One, again, you can also, I know the counter argument is, was Moyes ever willing to replace him or give it a chance? But it's one of those things. There's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas with him. There's great reasons to keep him. Attitude-wise, I completely agree. I think if you have the opportunity to utilize him as a make weight in a deal or to help a deal, such as Lavia, you would do it, because you're replacing a homegrown player with a homegrown player, quite frankly, and one who has an incredibly high ceiling. So I think sometimes you have to take the emotion out. And I know football, it's really hard to take the emotion out, to be honest, but it is what it is. I think sometimes you need to do that. But I think we'll end it there. It's been a good show. We're at the hour mark. I'm going to be disciplined and say we're going to end on the hour mark. But everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Slob, thank you for coming on and joining us today. It's been a privilege. Next time when I put up an image, it won't be so small that you need a magnifying glass in which to see it. It will be of a genuine size. But guys, if you have liked tonight, please do hit the like button. Please do subscribe. Massively helps us out. Follow us on Twitter as well. Please do follow us there. If you're interested in players that we could look at this year, we have an extensive list of players or as a pin tweet as players that you could we should potentially, or we feel we should look at. I'm just going to put this up. Thanks, Paresh. Bit of self-congratulations there, lads. We put on a great show, so that's always good. But once again, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We are obviously going to be putting out stuff every day. Hopefully, we'll try and do some more of these live streams as well and get people on to come on and join. But until next time, thank you very much. And Slob, you know what we do here as well. So for one last time, guys, come on, you
Come on, you Irons.